Back in the day, have you ever wondered what it would be like to have the best of the Macintosh and the best of the IBM PC in one computer? It seems trivial today, but in the early days of the Macintosh, it wasn't quite so easy. Today we're going to be talking about the Dayna MacCharlie. In one of the first reviews of the MacCharlie entitled Here's Charlie in Macworld magazine, February 1986, it was written that many people thought this was an April Fool's joke when the first ads came out. You may have seen the ads in the mid-80s for the MacCharlie and wondered, is that thing real? Well, you can see it's right next to me, so it's real. For those who don't know, the MacCharlie was a creation by Dayna Communications. It was a peripheral add-on for the Macintosh 512K and the Macintosh Plus that essentially grafted an IBM PC compatible onto those early compact Macs. In this episode, we'll cover a brief overview of the original Macintosh and IBM PC landscape of the time and discuss the MacCharlie benefits. We'll also get into some details on the MacCharlie, including taking a peek inside, and we'll run a couple of applications from that time frame. The MacCharlie is a little weird and quirky, but it's actually a pretty interesting peripheral. The IBM PC 5150, commonly referred to as simply the IBM PC, was first introduced on August 12, 1981 by International Business Machines, or IBM. It was the company's first attempt at creating a personal computer for the mass market and represented a major shift in the computing industry. The IBM PC 5150 was designed by a team of engineers tasked with creating a standardized computer platform that could be mass-produced and sold to a broad audience. The PC was built using off-the-shelf components, which made it more affordable than previous IBM mainframe and mini-computer offerings. The IBM PC's open architecture and compatibility with third-party hardware and software led to the creation of a vibrant ecosystem of PC manufacturers and software developers, which helped change the proprietary nature of computing and make it accessible to a much broader audience. Today, the IBM PC is widely regarded as the ancestor of the modern personal computer, and its legacy can still be seen in the design and architecture of contemporary systems. The Macintosh 128K, also known as the Macintosh 128 or simply the Macintosh, was released on January 24, 1984, and it marked a significant milestone in the history of personal computing. It features a unique and innovative design that set it apart from other personal computers of the time. It was a compact, all-in-one desktop computer with a beige plastic case and a built-in 9-inch black and white CRT display. The Macintosh 128K featured Apple's revolutionary graphical user interface called the Macintosh Operating System, or macOS. macOS allowed users to interact with their computer using a mouse and graphical interface, which was a significant departure from the command line interfaces used by other personal computers at the time, including the IBM PC. The Macintosh 128K helped to establish Apple as a major player in the personal computer industry. Its innovative design, user-friendly interface, and bundled software applications set a new standard for personal computing, and its influence can still be seen in modern computers today. The MacCharlie was introduced by Dayna Communications to the Macintosh community in April 1985 to help bridge the gap between the Macintosh and the IBM PC ecosystems. Its main purpose was to be able to use industry-standard IBM PC software on the Macintosh. This was before the days of developers implementing software for multiple platforms. So for example, the MacCharlie could have assisted a Macintosh-only shop that may have had partners or clients that were mainly IBM PC shops, and both needed to work on documents together. The MacCharlie also allowed information to be cut and pasted between IBM and Mac documents if one were running a word processor, for example, on the IBM MacCharlie side to the Macintosh side. It also made transferring files between IBM PC and Mac media and formats easier. It allowed the Macintosh to utilize printers from the IBM PC ecosystem, and it also allowed the MacCharlie, a PC, to be networked to other Macintosh computers. So here's the box that the MacCharlie comes in. I was starting to do a video and I had to struggle with the size of this box and the styrofoam, so I figured I'm just going to take some pictures because you can get the same idea of what is actually in the box that way. This is the top layer of the box, so this is the actual software and the DOS manual. And what you can see here is the contents of the software box, which has the main MacCharlie user manual. You see in the middle there some stickers for the keycaps and the software. I also have some supplemental manuals from upgrades. This is the DOS manual that is MacCharlie. It's basically the same thing as a regular DOS manual. And there's a small section in the front that is specific, but otherwise it's the same thing. And also it has MacCharlie DOS 3.1 specific branded discs. This is the other layer of the MacCharlie box, and it's got the unit inside, which is that middle piece, and it also has the keyboard extension. It also has various cables that I don't think are actually the ones for the MacCharlie, because I've had to make one of them, but that is basically what is in there. So once you have everything out of the box, these are the main components. You see on the top left the base, and this actually fits into the main MacCharlie unit, which is on the top right. It slides underneath. That's what the Macintosh sits on top of. So it basically becomes one unit. You can pick it up once you have both of those pieces and the Mac on it as one piece. The keyboard extension is something that's required for the normal size Mac keyboard. The extended keyboard means that you don't need this, but this is what extends the normal Mac 512K keyboard, and you can see the little pigtail within and that little plastic piece that actually fits into the hole that's in the Macintosh keyboard. So once you have that put in, it is a very snug fit, but you can basically push that in, and then you use the original keyboard cable to go back into the Macintosh itself. And once you have that set up, it is basically ready to go, other than the wiring in the back. So here's the cabling on the MacCharlie. This is on the back, and the MacCharlie unit is on the left on this picture, and the Macintosh 512K is on the right. There's essentially power which goes into the MacCharlie, out of the MacCharlie and into the Macintosh itself, so that the power switch actually switches on both units at the same time, even though the MacCharlie actually doesn't boot when it's powered on. The other thing is the communication cable, which goes on the top port of the MacCharlie and goes to either the serial communication cable or the printer port in the back. So the MacCharlie does have a couple of other ports. It's got an additional communication port, a DE9, which I believe is RS422. And the bottom larger port on the left-hand side is the image writer port. So the only other connection is the very bottom horizontal port, which is for the expansion chassis. So you can include multiple cards within that and have the MacCharlie work with those as well. So what we have here is the internals of the MacCharlie. So this is basically the unit opened up. On the top left you see the power supply. So this supplies 5 volts, 12 volts, whatever is required for it's pretty much a regular PC power supply. There's the floppy drives. In my case, the MacCharlie Plus has 2 floppy drives, 360K floppy drives. The regular MacCharlie only has 1 floppy drive. There's the motherboard, which is on the right-hand side. And as I mentioned, there's an expansion port. There's actually a card that fits into the expansion port. I'm not sure if that's a MacCharlie Plus feature or if it comes in all of them, but that is the card there. And this is not silent. It's actually there's a fan in here, and it actually heats up pretty good in there. This is specifically the motherboard. So if we take a look at the components in here, there's 640K of memory. This again is a MacCharlie Plus feature. I think the normal MacCharlie comes with 256K. There is the 8088 Intel CPU. It's hard to see because of the angle of this picture, but as well on the top right is the 8087 math coprocessor, which is that ceramic purple chip that you see there. This is one of two ROMs, so this is called the Charlie ROM. There is also the Emily ROM. I don't know specifically what the difference is between the two, but they must have different functionality. And that, I didn't want to get into specific chips. It's a regular compatible IBM PC. So most of the chips are just normal PC parts that you see in all other compatible IBM PCs. So this is the demonstration now of the MacCharlie. This is the MacCharlie connected to the Macintosh 512K. I have it booted up and I'm starting the MacCharlie app now. What it's going to do is ask me which port the cable is connected to, and you'll see that there's both the printer port and the modem port, and I have it connected to the printer port. So I'm going to select that. Once I do that, then the MacCharlie boots up. So when I first turn it on, it does not actually start up automatically. It actually requires the software on the Mac to start it up. And once we go and do that, it starts to now test memory and go through that. And you can see from the screen that this MacCharlie, as we noted before, has 640K of memory, and it's going to go through the memory count twice. So once this goes through, then it will basically start to boot up the DOS that is in drive A. So that's the disk that came with the MacCharlie. And so there's essentially two disks, a 5 1/4 inch disk with the DOS and a 3 1/2 inch disk for the MacCharlie itself. So we're here at the A prompt. Please excuse the bar that goes through. I can't really do much about that. This is the MacCharlie About screen, and amongst other information, including the developers and so on that you see, is the ROM version on the bottom left. But you also see the logo for the MacCharlie, and you see that apple that sort of transforms into the Charlie Chaplin hat. The Apple logo obviously is for Apple, but the Charlie Chaplin hat was the main spokesperson for the IBM PC, so you can see that fun little fact there. So going through the menus here, we can see the options to transfer files from and to the MacCharlie and the Macintosh. We can see the restart and pause commands, which allow you to restart the MacCharlie or pause it. We can resync the caps lock and num lock lights. This is the printer menu, and the MacCharlie's documentation actually has extensive information on printing. You can connect an image writer or an image writer 2 directly to the MacCharlie, as I noted in the image writer port. You can connect other serial printers to the MacCharlie, or you can connect printers to the Macintosh itself, and it will actually do that communication to do that and eject paper. Now, further on, we're going to go and take a look at the contents of the floppy drive, and what you'll notice is the speed difference. Now, the MacCharlie software is basically a terminal to the MacCharlie PC itself. So it's not the fastest of communication. Here I'm going to actually try WordStar. So we'll take a look at an application running, just putting that in the B drive, and I'm going to fire up WordStar, and you'll see that it's actually it looks pretty good. There's reverse text and so on, and bold. Obviously we're going to have issues around any sort of graphics or ANSI graphics. So I'm just going to fire up a document here, which I have previously saved. You see it's going from A to B and so on. The MacCharlie doesn't have a hard drive. I don't think there ever was a hard drive option. However, there is the expansion port option, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit here. So just typing some stuff on the MacCharlie keyboard and going through WordStar, which would have been one of the applications that a lot of people would have used back in the day. So it would have been important to actually do that. And this is actually a non-DOS document. If you've ever, if anybody recalls WordStar, but I'm going to go ahead and save that and get out of this, and we're going to go on to another application. So we're back at the DOS prompt. I'm going to actually fire up Lotus 123, which would have been another one of those applications that would have been fairly heavily used back in this time. The other one would have been DBase 2 or 3 or 3 plus. That is way too involved, so I didn't really want to do a demo on that. But the Lotus 123, you can see the little graphic-ish type come up on the screen. And now we get into Lotus 123. You can see that there is reverse text. And the screen updates are pretty good on this. I just typed in a few lines and a couple of cells and rows and columns, but it's actually fairly responsive. Obviously, there are graphical elements to this. You can't do those, but any type of regular text is not an issue with Lotus 123. Now, one thing I did do is I tried to do some transfers, and I had issues with that. So for whatever reason, I wasn't able to do transfers, so I couldn't demonstrate that. But that would have been another one of the major things of the MacCharlie, was to be able to transfer files from the PC disks to the Mac disks, and so on. So and vice versa. One thing I should have tried actually, and I didn't, was to copy and paste text from a PC application to a Mac application, for example. Now, one thing I'm going to try is a game called Mower, and this was created back in 1987. It's a text-based game, but it makes a lot of use of ASCII text. So there's actually colored text. It should work on a monochrome screen, and you can see some of the characters moving, and I don't know if that's exactly slow or not, but I can turn on sound, I can set a speed, and when I press a key, I should be seeing a lot of stuff on this screen, but I am not. You can see the little lawnmower moving. But there should be a whole background, and basically the game is you got to drive around with a lawnmower in your backyard and cut the grass. So that was just a little test to see how ASCII graphics worked or didn't work, and clearly that did not work. So this is where we start to get a little adventurous now. I had mentioned that the MacCharlie has an expansion port on the back. The expansion port was originally for a unit that Dayna was supposed to be creating, but it was also compatible with the IBM 5160 expansion unit. So what I did here is I connected an IBM 5161 with a hard drive, and that's basically the only thing that's in there. It is a 62 or 63 pin connector that goes from the expansion unit, if you know the IBM expansion unit, to the PC normally. This has the same connector. So that is the expansion, and you can see here that it boots up. I am now in drive C. I can do a directory and see all of the files that are on the hard drive that are in the IBM 5161 expansion unit. And I'm just going to go in here and look at a couple of directories, traverse the hard drive, and obviously any of the applications are going to run as they did with the floppies that we used. So it basically is the, I don't have the boot disk in drive A, it boots from drive C, and it runs as any other normal IBM PC would, except it's a MacCharlie and it runs through the Macintosh terminal quote-end-quote program. So this here now is where I get really adventurous. This is an IBM CGA monitor that is connected to a CGA, or actually an EGA card, that is in the IBM 5161 expansion unit with the hard drive, and we have booted up DOS, and you can see that it was on the CGA monitor. You can see here that on the MacCharlie you don't see any output, so you're not going to get dual output on the screen, but you see that all of the output is going to the CGA screen itself. So what I'm going to do now is go into the directory here. I have a directory of games, and I wanted to see if a CGA game will actually work. And what I've chosen is Leisure Suit Larry version 1, which is a game I used to play as a young adult. So I'm going to go in here, and there it goes. So I was really happy that this worked. Some of you who may have had experience with the IBM 5161 expansion unit, you generally cannot put a video card in them. It is not recommended to put in them. Here you can see me going through some of the questions to prove I'm not a child. So I would just go ahead and do that. But in the IBM world, the 5161, you can't put video cards. So this really worked one time in like 40, because there was a very specific startup of the expansion unit that I had to do while the MacCharlie was running, which is really not recommended, but I was able to get the EGA card to work. Now the EGA card, it does support CGA as well. That's why that monitor is working. So I believe I've gone through all but one question, and this is it here. So I'm going to go ahead, go into it, and now you can see the opening screen of Leisure Suit Larry. So this is the volume of the PC speaker that is running through the MacCharlie. For most of the demo I did not have the audio for the video on, because the keyboard is loud and there's a fan noise and so on. But you definitely had to hear this. So that is the full demonstration of the Dayna MacCharlie. Now for some final thoughts on the MacCharlie. The Dayna MacCharlie was an expensive proposition at launch at $1,795 US in 1986. At the time, you could get a full IBM PC clone for that cost and have two computers side by side. But it would have defeated the purpose of the Macintosh PC integration and the much smaller footprint. I have documentation for multiple upgrades that occurred, so it was well supported by Dayna Communications. That said, because of the cost and function, it was more of a solution for businesses and not necessarily a must-have option for consumers. People were in very specific camps in those days. You were either a Mac person or a PC person. There wasn't a large demand to be able to have the integrated solution for both. In terms of vintage computer collectability, it is uncommon, and many that were purchased for businesses would have been discarded. It remains a quirky, yet interesting collectible vintage computer peripheral. I'd like to take the time to thank you for watching this video. When I heard that Macintosh was coming, I had to think of a cool Mac-related item, and the MacCharlie fits the bill. It's not a common peripheral that you see every day for these early Macs, so I thought people would enjoy it. I'll be doing further demos of items in my vintage computer collection in the near future, so if you like this video, please let me know by liking the video. If you're interested in future videos, please consider subscribing to let me know your interest. My website is at https://vintagecomputer.ca, and it has a small portion of my collection. Unfortunately, it's yet another project on my to-do list, and I'm working on revamping that. I post on Twitter and on Facebook occasionally, so I'll leave a link to my Twitter account in the description below. If you do have a MacCharlie or have any questions on the MacCharlie or never heard of the MacCharlie, please feel free to leave a comment, and I'll be curious if other collectors like these strange and interesting add-ons. I personally love these creative solutions. Who knows, perhaps I'll make a video for the Mimic Spartan in the near future for Commodore. That's another peripheral that is along the similar lines, and it's also uncommon and interesting. Anyway, thanks again for taking the time to join me in learning about the Dayna MacCharlie.